never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
The American people are one step away from payday, but there's just one problem. And we all knew it was coming, and it just happened. Mitchy Boy decided to block the movement towards the increase because, understandably, he's just a little bit too concerned about how much debt this country is already in. We all knew it was coming. The House of Representatives passed their vote yesterday, agreeing to the increase. It all comes down to the Senate, but the GOP isn't really having any of it. And we're already starting to see the direction that Mitch McConnell wants to head. Did he just sign Georgia's conservative death wish? Is this going to put this election in jeopardy? Let's take a look at what I wrote this morning over on my Facebook newsfeed and the comments that a lot of people had to say. Because yesterday, if you guys joined the live, I said if I were a betting man, I'd bet money that we do not get this bill done, or at least it passes at $600. I said very clearly, I don't think the Senate's going to pass this because of the GOP majority. But this morning, I did a little bit of digging. I did some more research, and I didn't think about the Georgia state election runoff that we have coming up, and I changed my tune. Let's take a look at what people have to say about that. So as you can see here, I wrote this morning over on my Facebook feed, wait. After what I just read, I now believe the Senate will pass the COVID relief bill with the $2,000 payment to the American people. Here's why. Yesterday during my live, I said if I were a betting man, I'd bet on the Senate not passing the bill because I believe that there are too many GOP senators who are against distributing checks to those who genuinely do not need it, meaning the high income earners. And rightly so, I have always agreed with them on that point. If the income cap was much lower, I think it would pass with flying colors, but I knew that too many Republican senators would have an issue with couples earning $140,000 getting a check for $4,000. Is it really necessary that people who earned $140,000 get a check for $4,000? I don't think so. But then I thought, wait a second, hold on here. We have the Georgia state runoff in a few days that we desperately need to win. And although over 2 million people have already voted, we still need every last vote in favor of the Republican Party, and voting against this bill might be the final straw for many Republicans to once again, and very sadly, turn on their party. So with all that being considered, I think it will seriously hurt our chances of keeping the Senate majority if the same GOP senators who know this bill is not good for America shoot the bill down. So, not only is this bill being held hostage to the $1.3 trillion in pork, the pork bill we call it, it's now being held hostage to the Georgia runoff election. So, what now? Do we take our conservative hats off for a minute to give the American people what they so desperately need? Or do we protect the debt and risk losing Georgia? So, my conclusion is screw it. Pass the bill. Let's keep Georgia. I'm putting money on the fact that the Senate ultimately passes this bill. I think they're going to get way too much heat. I think it is Georgia suicide if we do not pass this. Now, there's a couple good comments, and I think I may have the strategy figured out. I think I know exactly what Mitch McConnell's up to, although ethically I do not agree with it, but I kind of know what he's up to, and I called it this morning in a conversation that I had with some of my keyboard warriors on my personal newsfeed. So let's take a look at what they said. Andrea says, I definitely agree with your thought process, but it burns my butt when I think about all the unnecessary pork, plus which we will all pay for in the end, along with the stimulus going to people who don't need it, though I rather see the people get money versus foreign countries. I 100% agree here. Listen, this is all of our biggest concern. We just don't want to see all this money fly out the door overseas. And that's where the concern has always been. And this is what the GOP has the biggest issue with. It's not increasing this bill or the COVID relief payment from $600 to $2,000. It's the fact that we're being held hostage to trillions of dollars in foreign aid or even domestic aid into things like museums and Smithsonian's. That's what we're concerned about, all this money going out. So although we want the American people to see this money, trust me, if I had to put in a vote, I'd probably vote for it. I'd vote for the American people getting this increase, although it goes completely against my conservative ideologies. And I know that America is going to ultimately shoot itself in the foot for passing this bill. But we've never been in a situation like this. We've never been in a situation where half the country's locked down, where we literally can't work. We have lost our right to earn. So I don't think it's too much to ask right now that our politicians just kind of think a little bit differently here economically and do what's right for the American people, because I think that's all what we want at the end of the day. Jill said, is the Senate actually discussing and voting today? Because as of yesterday, I thought they didn't even have a date to discuss. It's a great question. They're not meeting today to hold any votes. My reply here was, from what I understand as of right now, and which just happened, Mitch McConnell will speak on the floor today, which he did, and may clarify which direction the Senate Republicans are headed. But it could still take several days for that vote to occur, given the complexity of the issue. Also, he may stall the process simply to get through Georgia, which I believe would be a sneaky move. But perhaps the right one. Keep Georgia and vote no? Again, my conservative hat says no, but as an American, I say the people need this money. I think it would be very bad taste to string people along for Georgia and then still vote it down. I really hope they don't do that. They would piss a lot of people off. So I hope there's no hidden agenda today with how Mitch just blocked the movement or the move, which was very much recommended by both Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. He's come in and said, hold on, we're not rushing this thing through. We need a minute to think. This is why I didn't want Trump to sign the bill Sunday night. This is why we all said, what are you doing? Why are we signing and then just going to hope that everybody does what they said they were going to do? That's not how it works. A negotiation needs to be done and final, signed in writing, so we don't have to take any more gambles in the future. Trump should know, out of anybody, he should know this. So he completely threw the nation off guard Sunday night when he signed the bill in good faith that we approved the increase. Well, here we are. House approves it with flying colors. We now have the Senate GOP led saying, I'm not sure this is the smart idea. And a lot of people don't want this bill to go through because they know it's bad for America. Let's take a look at some other comments and see what the keyboard warriors have to say about this. Let's look at a very conservative view. Leward says, and I love this comment, wake up, people. The last stimulus bill is not just the latest stimulus bill is not just a liberal thing. The majority of both sides had to agree to this, and then the president had to sign it. The right would like everyone to believe the left is solely responsible. Their reasoning for signing is as valid as the old saying, just because your friend jumped off a bridge doesn't mean you do. We are being bought like street whores by politicians, and out of greed, allow them to keep abusing us. Politicians have given us a sense of entitlement to these funds they pass out disguised under the names of welfare, school grants, business subsidies, business grants, etc. Tax projects like sports venues, etc. need to stop as well. Taxes are going to go up to cover the spending, and they will never go back down. We are being held hostage. We are prisoners to China and Saudi Arabia, as well as large financial organizations, for bailing out our debt as the money needs to come from somewhere. It's very good points. These are all right on point. He's absolutely right. by us continuing to go in debt, by us continuing to sign these ridiculous bills, we are now screwing this nation financially for generations to come. Our children and our grandchildren are going to greatly suffer because we are on a ridiculous spending spree right now. It is out of control how much money we are borrowing. And if we can't borrow it, guess what happens? We print it. If we print it, inflation goes through the roof. So all of you who think that this money is free money, it's not. You're going to pay for it later at the pump when gas costs $10 a gallon. You're going to pay for it when milk costs $8 a gallon, when a loaf of bread costs $12. Inflation is going to catch up to us at some point, and we are all going to suffer tenfold compared to a measly $2,000 today. And a lot of people don't get this. A lot of people don't understand that printing money, borrowing money at the rate that America is right now is not a good thing. It's going to bite us in the ass if we don't get a handle on the situation. So he's very right here, and I love the comment, and I had to read it to you guys. Let's finish it. For those that don't clearly understand the national debt, we are currently only paying the interest on our debt. Very similar to when you take out a mortgage. What's the first thing you pay? The interest. That's why your mortgage is 30 years or whatever it is that you get. But on a 30-year mortgage, you might go years and only knock 10 grand off the house, out of the total house. Thinking, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars here. Why have I only knocked off 8? Well, it's because you're paying all that interest off first. The same is with the national debt. We are currently only paying the interest on our debt. No money is going towards actually paying it off. This would be like you buying a car for 10 grand, paying only the interest in your entire life, then passing that on to your child to pay their entire life. Currently, 10% of our federal taxes is paying only the interest on our debt. He gets it. It's a great comment. This is how we all should be looking at it. Of course, the media doesn't paint it this way. All the media does is say, the House passed it, Mitch McConnell's holding it up. Well, Mitch McConnell's just looking out for the financial interest of this country. From a Republican or a conservative or an investment ideology. But again, we've never been in this situation where we've all been locked down. So it's a very sticky situation to be in. It's a very troubling position to be in. I feel for our politicians right now that have been put in this spot, that have to literally decide whether we help the American people or we help America for generations to come. Let's head over to Newsmax right now, and we'll play a clip of what these guys think, or what this reporter thinks about the insanity of printing this kind of money and why it needs to stop. But first, we're going to take a look at Georgia. And actually, just give me a second. We're going to take a look down here. We've lost the clip. First, we're going to take a look at what Georgia has to say and why we need Republican voters to turn up. They're very worried. They're very nervous that we're not going to get the voter turnout that we need already. Over 2 million people have voted. Polls are already showing that we're less than 1 point between the candidates. It's going to come down to every last voter. Let's have a listen.
Million people have already voted early. I read this morning that 27% of the voting population there, which is just an unbelievable number, has already voted early. What's it like for David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler? Are they able to sort of, fly back and forth between Georgia and Washington? It's not a far distance, but Bernie Sanders wants them in there. He can do that. He wants them there as they deal with this bill. But obviously, the next 7 days are going to be crucial days. Both races are really separated by every poll, if you believe the polling, by less than a point. So are they still holding rallies and sort of flying back to D.C.?
They're doing tours. I mean, both sets of campaigns. Essentially, they're running as two different slates. Nobody's running individual campaigns now. It's the Democrats versus the Republicans. And I know that they had a tour going through Middle Georgia yesterday, but with Senators Perdue and Loeffler, Warnock and Ossoff are having joint rallies around the state. So you're seeing a lot of that kind of thing going on. And this is where you're fighting for onesies and twosies in terms of these things, because like you're saying, and like this polling's showing, it's going to come down to every last voter. And this is blowing away every record we've ever had for a runoff election. I think the previous record was 1.5 million overall. Wow. And we're already at 2.337 million voted in this state.
You know, it's a tough.
So as you can see here, we've got these candidates running all over the place right now. And you think about the impossible situation that they're in and why this is so stressful for the Senate right now, or at least for the Georgia runoff. You've got the candidates trying to deal with the COVID relief package in Washington, which, by the way, as you saw there was a headline that just said Bernie Sanders to filibuster the deal. So that means he's going to try to hold this thing up and keep him in Washington even further. So we've got everybody scrambling to try to get a COVID bill out, and we've also have the candidates trying to get back to Georgia so they can campaign. So they're a little bit nervous. All eyes are on Georgia. We're trying to find out, or we're trying to kind of get an idea here as to what direction we're headed. So all of this is intertwined right now. It's a very sticky situation, and it's very complex, which is why we need to make sure that the GOP makes the right decisions as far as the COVID relief bill is concerned. We do not want to piss off Georgia residents right now and have them say, you know what, I'm done with this. I can't take it anymore. I'm voting blue. I'm sick of the Republican Party causing problems when, like I said, they're not causing problems. They're just trying to look out for this country. Let's take a look at some of these comments right now and see what the American people have to say about Georgia residents turning up and the stress and the nerve-wracking situation that we all find ourselves in, hoping for a Republican win. Mind you, people are they're worried. They're worried right now because of what just happened with the last election. They're worried about potential fraud. They just want to make sure there's going to be an honest election being upheld. David says, Georgia is running the same sham election it had in 11-3. Warnock and Ossoff will win because of fraud with the mail-in ballots, and don't even start with them counting ballots in the middle of the night with no media or poll watchers while it was caught on camera, and they still deny it. So as you can see, people are really concerned right now about the election. They're concerned that we're going to have the issue with the mail-in ballots again. Over 2,000 people have already voted. That's a lot of people that have either mailed in ballots or voted early. So there is a need for concern. There's a very understandable reason for them to be concerned. But let's just tackle that for a minute, because they do address this in the video. What measures has Georgia actually taken to make sure we do not have this issue, that we don't have potentially fraudulent issues again? Let's hear what they have to say here.
At the same time.
A couple quick questions for you. As the Georgia statewide voting system manager, November 3rd, Georgia was one of these 5 states that was really, the results were thrown into flux, especially on election night and on the 4th and 5th of November. The state was, the 2 candidates were separated by less than 12,000 votes. And there were questions about the legitimacy of those results. How do you expect the American people and the people of Georgia to trust the results on January 6th, no matter which way they go?
Well, here's the main thing I want to tell Georgians right now. There's a group of people out there, including some of the president's former lawyers, who are saying boycott the election. Don't do that. Get out and vote. It's really important. Your vote matters. And if you believe that the election's been taken or stolen or whatever, those kind of things, we don't believe it happened. We don't have evidence that happened. But if you do believe that, come out and vote. But just to make it harder for somebody to steal if you believe that happened. One of the things we did is we did a hand tally of every vote in the state, all 5 million of them, and it showed that the election equipment counted properly. We're doing a signature audit in Cobb County where there was an allegation that the signature match wasn't done. It looks like that was a very, very good signature match. We're releasing a report later today or tomorrow in conjunction with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. We've also instructed the counties to open up a signature verification process in a more public manner, which has always been there under the law, but it was not a practice that was usually done. And there are Republican and Democrat monitors in those locations. Yeah. We're going to have investigators at Fulton County pretty much full time for the absentee ballot counting. I mean, Fulton was one of the areas where we saw a lot of questions around the process, but no real evidence that anything happened. We want to make sure people understand we're going to have eyes on that process as we move forward.
Gabe, history will be the final judge on this, but at least.
So they're going to have eyes on the process throughout the entire election. Boycotting this election would be the worst thing that anybody could do. That would make zero sense for anybody to want to boycott this election because of their frustration regarding what just happened. That is not going to help anybody. That's a good way to guarantee that Republicans lose control of the Senate. Boycott the election. It's a done deal. That is the nail in the coffin that we will experience if we make such a stupid decision as to boycott this election. We have to trust, and I know it's a very hard thing to do right now, but we have to trust that they learn from their mistakes during the presidential election. We have to trust that they are putting measures in place. They've said they've hired in teams of investigators, teams of lawyers. They are preparing and planning to stop any sort of potentially fraudulent activity that may occur. Whether you believe there was fraud or not, that's not for Georgia to decide right now. All they can do is put measures in place to make sure that fraud isn't committed for this election, that the mail-in ballots are counted accurately and legally, and that the right candidates win justifiably. So boycotting the election is a horrible idea. People need to turn up. They need to get out there. And remember, according to the results of the presidential election, Biden only won by 12,000 votes. 12,000. Democrats are turning up. Are Republicans going to turn up? If they don't, we will lose control of that Senate. So if you know people in Georgia, you got to tell them to get out and vote. Forget this boycotting business, because it'll be the nail in the coffin that the GOP finally gets, and we'll lose control of that Senate. Let's head over to CNN. Another great article on Mitch blocking an effort to quickly pass a measure to increase that direct stimulus payment from $600 to $2,000 through the legislation. Could be voted on a later time or date. So like we said in the beginning of the show, there's a lot going on here. House of Representatives passed the bill, they voted to pass it. We now have the vote going to the Senate. Are we going to get an increase from $600 to $2,000? It all comes down to the Senate, which is GOP led. Today, all eyes have been on Mitch McConnell to see what direction he's going to go. He blocks today an effort to quickly pass a measure to increase those stimulus payments from $600 to $2,000. Was it the right move? Is this really what we should be doing right now as we get ready for the Georgia runoff election? Let's see what the American people have to say about what just happened today on the Senate floor. Lori says Moscow Mitch just ensured that both of the Senate seats in Georgia will go blue. And that's exactly how I started off the show today. I said I'm very nervous about the fact that if we block this, or if we vote against this increase, it will be the last straw for a lot of Georgia residents, and they will flip that state blue, therefore losing us the Senate. Teresa says he does not care about people, only his corporate buddies that line his campaigns. I have to disagree with Teresa here. Again, he's just looking out for the national debt. Yes, we all want that money. Everybody wants that money. Who wouldn't want that money? But people like Mitch, and some of the comments that we saw in the beginning of the show, they see the bigger picture here. They know that this kind of lending, this kind of financing to the American people is going to cause generations of financial pain and hurt in the form of taxes, in the form of high interest that we're never going to be able to pay off. So we have to be very careful with the decisions that we make today, because our children and our grandchildren are going to be the ones who ultimately suffer from these decisions. So I don't think he's only thinking about his corporate buddies. I think he's thinking about America in general and trying to make sure that we don't get in a situation that's going to hurt us for generations to come. Patricia says, what if they are funneling our tax money into other countries and paying those countries to send it back to them to line their pockets. We would never know. When they go into office, their salary is somewhere in the range of 100 grand plus. After a while in office, they are worth millions. Where is that money coming from? They are clearly not earning it respectfully. This guy always has been a problem. Time to kick him out. It's a valid question. I'd like to think that it's not actually happening, but you do look at the likes of Nancy Pelosi, who's worth 100 million plus on a 160,000 odds or so salary per year. A lot of these politicians, yes, they do have money. I mean, let's be honest, it costs a lot of money to run for these positions. It costs a lot of money. You got to raise money. You got to know people. A lot of these candidates have their own money to begin with. A lot of them know people who have money. So it's not unreasonable to think that a lot of them are very wealthy to begin with, going into Congress or going into the Senate or going into the House. But we do have to kind of question why there is such a sense of urgency to give so much money overseas. Why? I don't understand it. It's something I've been trying to figure out for years now. Why do we feel the need to send hundreds of billions of dollars, even trillions of dollars, to other countries so they can build their infrastructure or they can build their economy? What does America get, from this? And I've always asked, I want to know, I've been in conversations with people about this before, and I said, I want to know what we're doing with this money. I want to know why $700 million needs to go to Sudan. I want to know exactly what's in it for America. And I think if we knew what that investment looked like, what are the returns on that money? How does that help America get out of debt quicker? And if we knew what all of these different financial aid investments that we, or I guess loans that we send out to these countries, I hope they're loans, but if we just knew how that offset the debt, we might all be on board with spending it a little bit better. And I'm sure it's all in the budget somewhere, and I'm sure it's very transparent, but the media should pay a little bit more attention to that. They should try to dumb it down for those of us who don't want to read through thousands of pages of financial statements in order to figure out what's really going on with this money. Why are we sending it overseas? Why are we sending $505 million to Central America when we could be sending that money to small businesses right now? Why are we sending tens of millions of dollars to count fish? Why are we sending all this money overseas to all of these different countries when so many Americans are starving to death right now, literally poverty-stricken in the streets, homeless? These are questions that I would like answered, and I think the American people want these answered, and I think our politicians owe it to us to explain this a little bit better. And then, like I said, maybe we'd be on board with all the money that they're spending. Angela says, this man is worth $23 million. He does not care anything about poor people's problems. He has to go. And this is why I said, I do think, sadly, I think that we do need to take off our conservative hats, put on our For the American People hat, and get this done. I do think the American people need this money. I think it's only going to help with the Georgia runoff. I think that's exactly what everybody needs to say right now. And it might even turn some Democrats to voting for Republican this Georgia runoff election. You never know. But I'll tell you right now, if they stall on it much longer, if we get to the 5th and we still don't have a decision, I think it's going to piss off enough people that they're going to decide to vote blue, and we're going to lose the House majority. Ewan says, get rid of the pork, then approve the new bill. Stop politicizing it. The people of this country deserve nothing less. Why do we have to export all that money aboard? Have we not learned from Hillary's mistakes in the past? That's exactly right. We do need to stop politicizing this. Sadly, it's a bit too late. The second they started locking us down and taking away our right to earn, it became a political matter. Fortunately, now we're fighting back. We see businesses, small businesses, winning lawsuits against governors like Cuomo. We see people winning lawsuits in California, ripping up their fines, throwing them away, saying we've had enough. And I do feel like the governors are now backing off. I feel like they're finally letting us get back to work. It's too bad that we had to start suing them, and half the country had to go bankrupt or broke for them to realize they probably made a big mistake here. But I do feel like we're fighting back finally. I feel like if they stand any chance of getting reelected, that they need to start letting us get back to work right now instead of holding our hands behind their back and completely destroying our right to earn. Why do we have to export all that money abroad? Have we not learned from Hillary's mistakes in the past? Exactly right. Jennifer says, I fail to see the logic in government that allows one man to make these sorts of decisions for the entire country. A bill that passed the House with the majority that this one did should not be able to be blocked by one single person. Shame on him. Well, we do have checks and balances in America. That's why we have the House and we have the Senate, so we can keep each other in check. That's why we have the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. It's only natural for us to debate and try to negotiate a deal that's beneficial for all Americans and for the American economy. So, yes, we do need to have decisions on both sides. And you have to remember, we vote these people in. We can't vote for these people every single election and then scream and yell at them when they make mistakes and then continue to reelect them. It makes no sense. So if we want these people out, it's very simple. We vote them out. It's completely up to us. This country is run by the American people. The politicians and the government works for the American people. That's how it works. So we need to remember this every single election. And for everybody who's pissed off and frustrated with the decisions being made right now, get out there and vote and encourage everybody else to get out there and vote as well. We'll look at one more comment before we take a commercial break, because there's a video I want to show you of how poor of a decision we think Congress is making right now on the ridiculous spending spree, and somebody who would rather us get back to work and forget the whole business of handing out more socialist crack money. We'll take a look at that video, though, just when we come back. Thomas says at some point we have to stop pretending there is any law that actually gives Mitch this kind of power. There's literally nothing in the Constitution or federal law that lets a single senator decide what gets voted on. It's just dumb ceremony and chamber rules. As it stands, we're literally just letting the voters of Kentucky be the only ones in the country who get to decide anything. Stupendously bad system. Well, the fact of the matter is that it is the system, and like I just said, we voted these guys in. We're now stuck with the consequences or the reward, depending on which way you look at it. We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. I got a great video to show you. It puts the whole thing into perspective. Forget any of this stimulus payout garbage. Let's just get America going again. Lift the lockdowns back to work so we can get back to the American dream. We will be right back.
Welcome back to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard, and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Welcome back. In the beginning of the show, we spoke a lot about the Georgia runoff. We spoke about the fact that Mitch has come out and blocked the opportunity right now to quickly pass this bill and increase this COVID relief payment from $600 to $2,000. There's just one other video I want to show you guys, and it has to do with a couple reporters who are thinking this whole stimulus thing is nonsense. Forget the entire thing. Congress are acting like drunken sailors right now. We should not be putting the full emphasis on stimulus payouts. We should be talking about unlocking this country, getting back to work now. Let's take a look at this video.
The Congress have been acting like drunken sailors after payday for 20 years. They haven't passed a budget in a generation. All they do is these pork-filled continuing resolutions, and this is another slap in the face of all Americans. Look, God bless the president for saying it should be $2,000, not $600. But at the end of the day, we don't need handouts from the government. We need America to be reopened. We don't need hundreds of millions of dollars for American health workers outside of the United States to buy new SUVs. We don't need gender programs in Pakistan. We need those bars. We need those businesses to be reopened. That would be the best COVID relief bill, a bit of freedom for America.
He's absolutely right. This would be the best bill for America right now. Freedom. And that's what it's always been about. Getting back to work, opening this country up. Listen, there's a vaccine out. What are we waiting for? We have destroyed this country over a virus with a 99 or a 98.9% survival rate. We have destroyed America, and we need to get back to the old normal. We need to get back to pursuing the American dream, where we stopped acting like little beggar children and asking for handouts. Look at this country right now, going crazy over $2,000. It's ridiculous. We're putting America in such a bad situation. We're sending this country into further debt. We're going to be paying for it for generations to come. All we want to do is get back to normal. It's not too much to ask. Open the doors. The vaccine's coming. If you're worried, stay in. That money, if anything, all of the stimulus relief money, it should just go to people who are immune compromised or the elderly. I'd rather them get my pay. And there's millions of Americans who think the same way. Keep my check. I don't want it. I just want to get back to work. I want to hustle. I want to grind. I want to make money the way I know how to make it. I don't want to sit here and have to care about $2,000. And I think that's the general consensus on the street. But it might be too little too late. The damage is done. Unemployment is at an all-time high. Poverty is an all-time high. Tens of thousands of restaurants are closing every few weeks, never to reopen again. What are we going to do now? What is $2,000 going to do? What's going to happen when that payment protection money that gets sent out with this new bill goes? What's going to happen when these businesses run out of that money because Americans aren't spending? They want to send out this, they call it a stimulus bill because it's supposed to stimulate the economy. Well, I don't think they realize exactly how this whole thing works. There's a trickle-down effect that stops when I stop spending. So you can give a pizza shop 30 grand for their employees for a couple months. But if I'm cutting back on spending on ordering pizza, that money for that shop's going to eventually run dry. What's the government going to do? Keep them open for the next 5-10 years while we rebuild this economy? Because the damage from coronavirus has been so severe that it's going to take years, if not a decade, for this country to rebound. And the stock market is not the only indication of a successful economy. All that means is that the corporations are thriving because they're not spending. They have so much cash stockpiled that if they cut all their employees today, they can sit there and last for the next 100 years for all they care. That doesn't mean the economy is as just in good of shape. It just means that these corporations who are stockpiling cash and not spending it are sitting very, very comfortably. But it's no indication of how America is doing in general. And I think we're going to find that the markets can only handle so much before they too start to see an economic collapse. That's the next thing. First, it's going to be real estate. When eviction freezes are up and a third of Americans can't afford to stay in their property because now landlords can't afford their mortgages, and it's going to all implode. So the stimulus package is not an answer. It's a Band-Aid at best that's going to only stay on for a matter of seconds before we find ourselves in a much more catastrophic situation. At some point, the money's going to run out. He's right. We need to get back to work. That is the best bill that we can pass, the bill of freedom. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 p.m.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark.